Good afternoon all. Thank you for your attendance. Any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillors Alison Anthony and Louise Gibbard, and Julie Davis and Helen St John also send their apologies.
Thank you. Any disclosures?
I'm sorry, and Dave House as well.
Oh, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've had none now.
Oh, Leslie's put her hand up.
Leslie?
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm now actually officially on this committee, but it's not got it on the covering sheet for the papers. I don't know if that matters at all.
You're in, Leslie. Definitely back on this committee.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to have you back. Item 2, disclosures of personal prejudicial interests. None to note out. The minutes, to approve the minutes from Monday 22nd of July, page 1, page 2, page 3. Any matters? No. Yes, any matters arising, please, first. Can we have a mover then, please?
I'd like to
Thank
move
you.
the minutes, Chair.
And patience for a second. Thank you. Move on to item 4, update on refresh of the council's tackling poverty strategy it's for information only. I believe, Lee, are you here with us? Yes. Hiya, welcome. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, Board everyone. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm the Tackling Poverty Service Manager, for those of you who haven't met me before. And this is an information update on the progress we're making towards refreshing the Council's Tackling Poverty strategy. So the papers there, I won't verbatim any of it, but just to give you the headlines really. So we've been working on this refresh development work for about a year now in the context of doing a lot of engagement activities with people to understand what people in the communities of Swansea really think and want us to do about poverty. The report does detail some of the stuff we've already done, including a survey that we provided about a year ago where we had over 300 responses, and we captured a lot of information about the sort of priorities and actions and the perspectives and insights of people. Many very sort of important comments, you know, the experiences of people and communities that are going to help us shape what our work should be going forward. So what we've been doing since then really is trying to shape all of that around public policy, reviewing and analysing the various strategies and developments that are already ongoing. For instance, in January, Welsh Government published its child poverty strategy. We've been working with colleagues and partners through our Poverty Partnership Forum, through the Swansea Poverty Truth Commission, which is just kind of coming to the end of it's kind of the first commission, has been looking at a number of recommendations that we want to take on board, and obviously talking across the council in terms of other departments, teams and organisations. So within my service then we've been trying to turn that now into a draft strategy that the plan is to take out for public consultation in the next couple of months, once we've gone through a bit of an opportunity to go back out to the public and say, we've listened to everything you've said to us up until now, we've done all that analysis, here's what we think it's looking like, is this right? So trying to do some co-production activities, trying to bring the voice of lived experience into the work we're doing. So the main part of the report really around sort of section 3 is around our initial findings really, and a bit of a sneak peek, if you like, to give you an idea about the work we've kind of already done. So I'll very quickly walk you through it. In terms of, we asked about the definition of poverty that the current strategy uses, and we had a lot of good feedback on that in terms of trying to make it easier to understand, trying to reflect the breadth of experiences people have. It's not just a financial measurement of poverty. Many people use their experiences in terms of the impact on their well-being, the impact on their relationships with other people, their family members, and so on. So we developed a draft definition that we now want to take out to partners, colleagues, back to the public, etc., with a fuller explanation that sits behind it. So within the sort of section 3.1, we kind of show you that, and what we're going to do then is kind of take that out and see if that definition works. Similarly, other things that we've started looking at, the sort of the vision that we've got, our key aims for the future, are focusing on three really important priorities, or really important aims, I should say. Earlier help, so getting the right advice, guidance, support and help to people at the right time before their needs escalate or worsen. Better outcomes, we want all the communities and people with lived experience to play a role in helping people experiencing poverty, as well as giving those people the opportunity to reach their potential and achieve their best life. And at the end of the day, the ultimate aim is to have less poverty in Swansea, so that everybody is working together towards that common goal. We're citing this as really a sort of a one Swansea approach type of ethos, in the sense of we're all working on this together. You know, tackling poverty is not the council's remit alone, and we very much see it as a collaborative challenge for us to take with many sectors, organisations, partners, etc. At the end of the strategy, then, we're proposing we would develop a tackling poverty action plan. This would be a co-produced set of key actions and themed work that we would take forward over the course of the next X number of years. Within section 3.5 of the report, I pull out what we've already kind of found as the 8 sort of key themes in that area, but we're really keen to kind of explore and break these down a little bit more. For instance, there's another agenda item, I believe, in a bit around digital inclusion. So, you know, that's sort of a theme that we would then take in a little bit more detail. We're already doing some work in these areas, such as homelessness, stigma and discrimination, where we've got a place-based project that we're currently running with the Wales Centre for Public Policy. So there is work that's ongoing, but this is about giving that sort of real focused area for each of these key themes. So all of that is kind of taking shape in the refresh strategy. Our next steps now is to really finalise that engagement piece of work that I mentioned, do a number of activities with the public, with our partners, with the various organisations that are involved in tackling poverty in Swansea, to get to that point in the next couple of months, hopefully by November, for formal consultation. That would then allow us to capture more formally, if you like, the responses of the public and our partners, turning that into a finalised strategy in the new year that would then go through the approvals process ready for publication. So that's our sort of timeline and ambition. And the purpose of this report really is an opportunity to give the committee an idea that this is coming, to open the doors, if you like, for people to get involved and engaged with the Tackling Poverty development team that is coordinating this work, and to really move us a step closer towards having a refresh strategy. That's all I was going to say, unless my colleagues have anything else to add, but very happy to answer any questions as well, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Lee? Patience?
Oh, thank you, Chair, and thanks very much for that presentation. Representing a ward that is widely known to be one of the most deprived wards in Swansea, we see poverty, you know, almost on daily basis in different forms and shapes. And so this piece of work is something that is very close to my heart as one of the councillors in Castle Ward. And I'm really looking forward, you know, to seeing the implementation of the action plans. But, you know, just to get a sort of flavour of what you're getting back at the moment in terms of feedback, and also to get a sense of, you know, what people are saying, obviously bearing in mind the cost of living crisis and all that's happened, you know, in recent years. In terms of the work you've done so far and the feedback, the responses that you've had, do you find that there's any significant difference to what you've had in the past?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We certainly have seen the cost of living crisis has had a different sort of impact in terms of rising costs that have impacted families, impacted people, sort of like in terms of the poverty premium that we've spoken about, where working people in jobs are finding it more difficult to stay above the what we would have called the poverty line. We've also taken a lot of the feedback from organisations like the Joseph Rowntree Foundation to try and understand the causes, the triggers, the knock-on impacts that poverty is having. So in terms of the work we've done locally, as well as kind of taking all of that on board. I mean, I've got some very sort of difficult to read quotes that have come from the surveys that we've done, for example, where people are talking about poverty has devastated my life. People who have been homeless with little or no money. So we are trying to take that lived experience and use that as the foundation for this work we do going forward. Like I say, the initial findings very much lead to those sort of 8 key themes where we know people are saying things like child poverty, for instance, families being unable to afford food for their children during the summer holidays, the winter fuel pressures that we had when we started the Swansea Spaces initiative. So we're seeing some of that evidence and we're building that into the refresh of the strategy, and hopefully that evidence will be part of the work we do when we present the strategy in more detail. I hope that answers the question.
Sorry, Chair, can I come in with a little bit more on that?
Yeah, and then Aaron. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, it's Amy Hawkins, Head of Adult Services and Tackling Poverty. I was just going to compare, and I don't have it exactly in front of me, but just from memory, the previous iteration of the poverty strategy, tackling poverty strategy. And I think just to get that question about the feedback and what people are saying, and just in light of the last couple of years, I think what's coming out stronger, I think would probably be fair to say, is digital. Is a stronger message this time than it was a few years ago. And I think that perhaps is because of the shift of so many things online and how accessible that is. I think the stigma and discrimination wasn't very strong in the past, and I think that's come out stronger now. And I think that's interesting, and really it's good that it's an area that we're obviously focusing on in the strategy. I think that's really important. I think the community action has come out stronger as well, and compared again to a number of years ago where we did the last iteration of the strategy. And again, I wonder if that just speculative, we will when we talk to people more as well, but again, in light of that community activity that we saw over the pandemic as well, and about that community resilience and how important that is. So just want to mention those areas, along with housing as well. That's another really strong message that's coming out this time, and around sort of housing costs and risks to homelessness as well, or people being at risk of homelessness. So I just thought I'd mention those areas that they were there before, but they've come out stronger now in those 8 themes. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Alan?
Well, yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks for the summary of that strategy. I mean, the strategy is fine. But I was thinking about, I mean, has this started in the practical sense? I mean, I was just wondering, I mean, how do we address the issue with people who are living in poverty? Are there some sort of areas where these where people can gather so that they can learn what's needed to be done in terms of addressing poverty? I was just thinking on the practical side of things. Everything that's in here is fine. I assume this is in its sort of advanced sort of stage of advising us what the procedure is. But I was just wondering on the practical side, I mean, is there anything or what happens to address the need, for people who live in poverty? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, great question, because this is a tricky part of where we are today in terms of trying to get that voice of lived experience built in at every stage in what we're doing. And we've been very keen to embed the principles of co-production into what we're doing. What we've learned through that process is that we need to put more channels and opportunities in place for encouraging and opening up the opportunity for people to come forward, share their experiences, give us their ideas and thoughts. So whilst we work brilliantly with the likes of the Poverty Truth Commissioners, people who have real lived experience of going through these difficult times and challenging circumstances, we want to increase that and give more platform, if you like, for people of lived experience. So there's a process that we will follow as part of implementing the action plan to set that up, to give those channels, to work closer with our partners, and then to use that as the starting point, if you like, for constantly reviewing and refreshing the strategy. So it can't be a case of we set these things now based on what we think we know, and then as we learn more, we don't, take that learning on course. So absolutely, there's a lot for us to do, but absolutely, we know now the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I asked the question on the basis that for many years I was the warden of St Mary's Church in Swansea, and I'm still a member there now. And we do meet with many people who are living in poverty and struggle, and they come into the church. We offer the support that we can, but it would be ideal if we could point them in the right direction as to where to go to get this real help that they need. You know, we can only do so much within the church. I mean, it's probably spiritual support rather than and very limited practical support. But I would, you know, that's what I really had in mind in terms of the practicalities of addressing these issues. You know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Leslie, Councillor Wall. Oh, sorry, go on. Leslie, you come in next, okay?
Sorry, can I just add a little bit more? I suppose in terms of that practical support, I just remind councillors on call about our cost of living website pages as well. You know, we have lots of practical information there, whether that's about the Swansea spaces, whether that's about the food banks that are supported, whether that's about the employability team support. There's a lot of ongoing activity as well. So I suppose just some reassurance. I know you're aware of this, but this doesn't mean anything stopped at the moment and new things are going to start. This is an ongoing process of practical support, and I suppose we always welcome any feedback on that information that we share with the public, because it's really key, as you say, to get people to join up all the services. Yeah, thank you.
Leslie, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, thanks. My computer decided to boot me out, so I've just managed to get back in again. So apologies if I've missed anything and I'm saying something that's just been already said, but I just want to hone in on the last aim about stigma and discrimination. I'm sure I've said this before, but I really do strongly dislike the words rich and poor, because I think they give the completely wrong connotation. Rich tends to be equated to things that are good, poor tends to be equated to things that are bad. And of course, this is where the stigma comes from. Poor people, the very word, oh, if you're poor, there must be something wrong with you. It's your fault. And I think it's language that we've got to be really, really a lot better with when it comes to describing somebody in poverty. When I can't think of any reason why whatsoever somebody who hasn't got money is poor in a bad way. They're poor, but because they've not got much money. So I think that's one of the things I'd like to hone in on when we talk about stigma, and that's one of the things that I think we need to address to try and reduce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Yeah, thanks, Lee.
Just to come back on that, Councillor, yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I know we've spoken about it before, and it's actually a part of the work that we're doing with the Wales Centre for Public Policy now, where we're running a sort of a collaborative place-based project looking at stigma on poverty in Swansea. So combining the sort of the policy elements with the lived experience of the people that we're working with. So the language that we use, the way that we refer to people in poverty, getting out of poverty, all of those are very essential. And that's why it's a key theme in this iteration of the refresh strategy, because it's come out so strongly about people feeling the sort of the shame, the pride, the reasons that are stopping them from engaging with us. Going back to the previous question as well, that if we can overcome some of those barriers as well, using the right language, using the right identity for people so that they know to come to us and we'll treat them with the right integrity and so on, that's going to be a huge part of it. So I just want to totally agree with what the council said.
Thanks, Lee.
Angela?
Hi there, thank you, Chair. In all fairness, I don't think I've heard anyone say rich or poor on the call at all, actually. What I wanted to say is if you know of somebody or you feel as though somebody could actually do with help, how do you deal, or is there any guidance on offering that person help when they may clearly not want to ask for the help? Because of the stigma around maybe just asking for the help is actually too difficult for them. You know that they need it, maybe somebody.
Happy to come back on that as best I can, because as you can imagine, that's a really tricky question to to deal with someone who's living that experience and who is struggling. In a lot of the stigma-based work I've done in the past, it's been about things like making sure there's lots of communication, asking more than once. That there's lessons we can learn from other similar stigma-based initiatives and campaigns that we can build in around poverty. We're also taking the learning that we're having from UK-wide research and analysis, looking at some of the good successful projects and case studies that have been happening around as well. To put some of those things in place. But a lot of it is about making sure our frontline staff, our public services are all aware of the stigma relating to poverty and what they can do to address it. So, going back to things like better information, better guidance, better insight, as Councillor Walton said, about making sure we're using the language right. All of it needs to combine to help that person overcome those initial barriers to getting help and support. And in fact, one of the other things we're doing is a bit of work now looking at inequalities and barriers that will help us understand what some of those challenges are and help people get over that to get the help they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. I think for me, there's a lot of work gone into it. There's a lot to do, obviously. And as you say, it's a moving beast. We all know that. And I think for me, coming into this role in 2012, living in Bournemouth all my life, I thought it's going to be okay. But it breaks your heart because I've grown up with these families. And I will say probably one of the biggest successes we've had to kind of identify the need and the demand on, the people that live in my community was the food bank. And we set it up independent, and we've got clients who are now volunteers, confidence. They're out there, and they're probably doing more than I could ever do, because people can relate to them because they're in the same boat. And poverty means different things to different people. It depends on the element, it depends on the impact, it depends on the trauma, because it is trauma. So, it's a massive piece of work. We need to address it. And I dare say if we were in 20 years' time, we'd still have this on the agenda because it's massive. But for you and your team, thank you. And we as a committee will be input in. But it must be soul destroying. And I know a family, and he actually sold his car because he said to me, I can't leave the house, we'll just have a kettle pack, because he could pay 6 months mortgage by selling his car. And I was like, once that money's in your bank, we all know it's exhausted. But he sold his car for 6 months mortgage payments. And I was like, but, you talk about in-work poverty, that's the finest example. And happy with a kettle pack. It was like, give me a kettle pack, man, I'm fine with that, I'm happy. But it does mean different things to different aspects of life, to different individuals. It impacts on the concept of family, carers. We always think about the obvious, and probably the less obvious is carers, and not so much for carers of young people, but carers of older people. And I see that more and more, with the people I represent. They believe they're strong and they're bold and they can go on forever, but they just need that little bit of advice, that little bit. And probably, we talk about foot soldiers, they are intelligent people who are totally committed to what they do, and caring is difficult. We all know that. So poverty is impacting and it's devastating. So once again, thank you. And I appreciate you coming here today. We look forward to you coming again. But, it's a big story. It's a big story for everyone. And I think until it touches you, and I can remember walking down the high street about 3 years ago, and there was a fella, homeless, and he said to me, oh, man, how are you? I knew him 10 years ago, and I got to be fair, he had everything. Devastating experience in his life, and he's ended up, and he's still on the streets in Swansea. And I'm like, well, you can pick yourself up, but I'm not there, am I? So I don't know. And, I'm not wearing those boots, so I don't know. But thank you. We appreciate, the work that's been done, and we appreciate you coming here today. So
just if I can, one thing. I mean, I fully support what you say. I don't know whether I'd be allowed to say this, but if I can just quote from Matthew 5, you know, that, you know, blessed are the poor in spirit, you know, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven, you know. So, you know, so
Thank you. Update on digital inclusion. It's for information only. Hayley? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased that the committee has chosen this item to be brought before you. It is a really important piece of work to consider, and the documentation which Lee will go through with you details how the council are performing when it comes to digital inclusion. Whilst there is a whole raft of good work being undertaken by different departments, it's important to really bring all that together. I know we talk about what one arm of the council is doing as opposed to the other, and it's really about us getting to know what's happening out there. And it's really important as well that we have a strong and clear direction and way forward, which cannot, of course, be steered by this committee. We're conscious, of course, that there's a whole huge amount of piece of work, which I know that you were involved with yourselves with the digital transformation and the inception of the board. However, these documents relate to how we consider and can address the barriers of people accessing information, those who are digitally excluded, as we may say. Those include people that experience digital poverty. I know we mentioned poverty before, but that's being unable to afford devices as well as an internet connection. It also looks at those with a lack of digital skills, and I know that Communities for Work Plus do a lot on that, and our Raging Well team do Tech Tuesdays with older people. But you know, there's lots of residents perhaps that we're not quite reaching. Also around accessibility, visibility and language and online safety. And I know that there was a real spike in perpetrators of online abuse, particularly with older people, those who are on their own. And that presents a real fear for people who, you know, are afraid. They hear these horror stories and then they don't want to access anything in the form of digital. And then, of course, we have to consider voice, choice and control. And there will be those people who do not want to access information digitally. And how do we reach those then? So we have to make sure that we are communicating, providing service provision and advice and information in alternative methods. Some of the data that's included highlights those groups that are less able to access information digitally, a lot being older people, those in social housing, those with limiting long-term health conditions. So how do we ensure that we are not leaving those at a disadvantage and discriminating against those groups then? The documentation which Lee will go through as well talks about the steps forward. And I know, Chair, that you were heavily involved in the corporate co-production policy, and you're really keen to ensure that the voices of our residents are included in whatever the council do. So, you know, whether that's something that the committee would like to be part of, whether it's workshops or whether it's some field work and actually talking to people, you know, obviously that'll be a choice for the committee to undertake. So that's enough from me, I think. I'll pass you over to Lee, who will go through the documentation that's included. And obviously I'm around for any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Hayley. Yes, me again. So yes, just to follow on from what Hayley said, this is basically a response partly in regards to a report that was done by Audit Wales in March 2023, talking about digital inclusion in Wales, and they came up with a number of observations, recommendations, highlighting the growing issues of digital exclusion, as it were. So, you know, not having the access skills or confidence to be able to use the internet, and the opportunities we've got as a local authority to do more to encourage that and to promote digital inclusion is making sure people are willing as well as able to you know, use digital tools and services, and recognizing that the challenge of public services becoming a lot more accessible, more services becoming available online, potentially precludes or makes it more difficult to people to join or to be part of those. So yeah, and those were the main reasons that the report found that you know, why people are feeling digitally included. The infrastructure's not there. The poverty element of it in terms of people being able to afford broadband and tablets and phones and things like that. The information that is there not being very accessible, usable, the language that we're using perhaps excluding some people, so they're not able to overcome those barriers. Accepting that there is a portion or a percentage of people who will choose not to use digital when that option is there and they are capable of doing it, and that is a preference, and absolutely, you know, their rights come into that as well. And then, as you mentioned, overcoming that sort of online safety issue and the challenges that represents as well. So with all of that in mind, we've looked at that approach within the council since the publication of the report. We've brought that kind of forward now as going to be a key theme, as I mentioned in the previous agenda item, under the Tackling Poverty strategy. So hence, I'm here today more talking about it than somebody else. So there's a lot of stuff already going on in this space, as Hayley's already alluded to, lots of training, things like our lifelong learning service. We're trialing things like VR headsets and things like that, you know, some trying to use technology and digital services to promote social care and so on. There's lots of great opportunities for us, but how can we kind of coordinate all of that across the council? So the ways we're doing that, or in terms of what the report is presenting today, is pulling together some information, a framework, action plan, those sort of things that will allow us to get organised and coordinated to take those actions forward. Doing some mapping to understand what we're doing now and where the gaps are. Again, bringing lived experience into that as well, so we can take people's insights on board as well. Setting up a steering group, which I'll come on to in a second, and giving opportunities for people to share their own experiences to inform some of the decision making and activities that we do. So in terms of the first part of the report, it's basically saying that's our proposal to take it forward under the Tackling Poverty strategy. We would set up a theme of work under that, with the action plan being our coordination point. The steering group proposal, which is the sort of the second paper presented, is to kind of bring the right people into the room to start that work. Looking at our colleagues across the council in different areas who are responsible for that in IT, face-to-face services, people at the front end of that sort of public sector, public engagement. And then to coordinate the development of the action plan with people of lived experience. I'm really keen within that as well to get, as I was mentioning earlier, more channels for that lived experience to come forward. Obviously, we can't rely on digital channels for informing how digital inclusion should be improved. So we're going to have to be out there. We're going to have to be in the communities, in the local areas, and talking to people face to face. What are the challenges and the issues that people are facing? So all of that will be part of the remit that we want the steering group to inform and to help us shape. So the proposal in the second paper is really about how we do that, how we bring that group together, sort of initial ideas about who the right people would be in the room for the start of that conversation, and kind of like developing in terms of reference and so on. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at the minute, but the intention is that it would be something we would report through the Tackling Poverty strategy. We would welcome not just elected members, but, you know, I say across the council and across all of our partners to be involved in that process, in that journey. We're looking for setting that steering group up in the next few weeks, sort of months, sort of thing, to try and get some momentum going on this and bring the right people into the room to take the plan into the next level. And then hopefully we'll be able to start reporting back in a bit more detail, a bit more earnest about the impact we're having, the outcomes we're achieving, and how we're able to make a measurable difference to people's lives. I think that's it in a nutshell. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions for Lee, please? Leslie?
Yeah, not a question, but just to say I so welcome this. You may well be aware that I was convener at one time of a working group looking at this, and it was felt that it needed to be something that was looked at regularly. I was always a bit hesitant about using it under scrutiny, because I think it's something that we need to be more proactive about, rather than saying, are we doing this right? And tweaking what we've got. I think it's far more a case of being proactive. So I am so pleased to see this on the table, and I'm more than happy to be involved in discussions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Meyer?
Good report. Fair play for you. My thinking up here in the estate, Blind and Mice Estate, I know I visit the old age group every Tuesday at the community centre. Most of them, I think, is only one amongst the 7 of them that attend uses the computer, and that's just basic. So I've asked them, would they like to go to computer groups, learn how to use these computers or learn how to use your phone? Most of them said no, because I can't afford the internet charges, Mile. Between we've lost this winter allowance, they were telling me this last week, how are we going to afford internet this year? And my children are saying the same. One of the old ladies said, she's struggling, 3 children, cost of living, everything going up. The mother said she will have to pay now for her daughter to have internet access for her children to get educated. So the elderly person is left behind again. It swings and roundabouts. I feel terrible for the elderly that get very frustrated with trying to get into the tenant's portal. Most of them don't really know how to use it properly. They do need training of the housing officer. They decide to use the portal to pay your rent, to report repairs. They don't know how to use it. And it's so sad sitting here thinking the whole Pendary, from Penland all the way down to Blind and Mice, these elderly over the age of 67 or more, most of them does not know how to use the portal for reporting the simplest things and how to get different sort of help and advice online. It's quite hard for them, and my heart goes out to them. But it is a good report, but more is needed to look at how we can get these elderly people more connected within IT, learning how to use mobile phones, learning how to use a computer at a local library. Most of them said the only library we got is in Penland South. But we got the Arc Centre. Whether they're allowed to use it up there, we don't know. But most of the little places that are around between all the Pendary, there's hardly anywhere an elderly person can access properly to get the information they want on how to use a computer, even learn how to switch it on. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Do you want to come in, Lee?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's a perfect example of exactly the challenges we are facing, and particularly in communities like that, where the assets and the resources, that we've got to make sure that things like infrastructure's in place, not just the advice and the support, the overcoming the barriers. So, I mean, there's lots of stuff that is going on now. I don't think it's, kind of as Amy mentioned earlier, that there are initiatives out there. We do training, we take things out to local libraries and communities. We've got, sort of like digital training packages that can help, but it's about overcoming those barriers as you just described there, so that those people can see the benefit and that are supported to get to that point. So I totally agree with everything that was just said. I think it's really important that we understand that, and very happy to pick up any specific opportunities we can help people outside of the meeting. If any councillors, any elected members want to come forward, and we can discuss how we can help the local communities in the short term. But certainly the intention of this work is to improve things longer term as well, and to put some of these things in place. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Yvonne?
Thanks, Chair. Lee, thanks for the report, but there are a few things that's been said, so I won't go through a lot of that. But what I would say is that what we need is a bit of a holistic approach, as I think I've said with other things, because you've got a laptop, but you don't have internet, or you don't know how to use it. So it needs to be a more of an approach that encompasses most or some or all of those things, and take into account what's happening in that home as well. The other thing is that with the survey, I feel, as this is something I'm always blathering on about as well, that it's the people who are already there, who are already out there, that get surveyed. And the people with the lived experience are usually struggling with life itself. So they don't get, their opinion isn't usually heard. And my question for that is, are we doing any, well, not are we, what are we doing about trying to reach some of those people? Like some of the people Maya was just talking about, but some of the people who are actually living, suffering, lacking these things, you know, what are we doing? How do we contact them? Or are we contacting them and asking them, yeah, where would you like to be able to go, for example, to access the internet? You know, I think reaching some people, I was thinking that in Swansea, we still have the Swansea TV, and I know some people think, but we could run a short 10-minute, 5-minute lesson on there on how to use your mobile, how to access your shopping list, how to. And they, I know, are always looking stuff for there to put out. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. But I think we need to be contacting more the people who are actually living and suffering from, well, suffering, wrong word, but have these daily issues. And they're the ones we need to talk to, because I personally feel the people we talk to, the people who fill in the surveys are already out there. They're not struggling as much. Okay, that's it really.
Thank you, Yvonne. Lee?
Thank you. Yes, very happy to come back on that one, because you're absolutely right. It is a challenge that perhaps the core group we need to reach out to are the ones that are perhaps we have to overcome some of those barriers to enable effective engagement and communications. Just an example, I was at the one-stop information shop last Monday in the National Waterfront Museum, and one of my team was had like a paper survey and was going around and just sitting with people who were coming in and actually asking them the questions. So rather than sending out links to emails and websites and stuff like that, we were having a conversation and we were doing that stuff face to face, which was really helpful. She came back with lots of good contributions and lots of insights that we're going to use. But that's just one example where we can take a different approach. We need to look at that in a more community-based level, and what we can do to get out into the local community groups, the areas, build on the relationships, for instance, with our local area coordinators who know the right people to go to and the right connections to make, so that we can sit down with those people and ask them exactly as you've said there, you know, what can we do? What do you need? How would we have a better chance of success with in terms of what you want out of this? So all of that is part of the work we need to do through the strategy, building better channels of engagement and co-production, giving people more access to our offices and our information and our years, basically, so that we could listen and take all of this into account. The other thing I'd say as well is just around where we take it from here, the barriers and the inequality stuff is absolutely going to be a key action for us to take. So to understand what it is that's stopping people from becoming digitally included and what action can translate to make those barriers go away, as it were, or to make them easier to overcome. We've talked about broadband connectivity in rural areas. You know, we've talked about working with our partners who are looking at these sort of new technologies. You know, the people that we're working with through a digital program at a regional level. There's lots of opportunities out there. We've just got to find the right things and then channel that information and opportunity out there. So very much high on my agenda. Thank you.
Yvonne, is that a legacy hand?
Yes, sorry, Chair.
It's okay, thank you. I think for me, we ask the question why, what, where, when. It's sometimes about that initial bad experience at school, and you're never good enough at anything. You're a failure in your life. Some people don't even open the door because they feel they failed in life. Concept of family's broken down. So in my ward, we did set up a club on a Tuesday. Initially, we asked for 6. There was like 18 on a list. And then they were all, oh, I can't put it on. Oh, trouble with basic skills. And they all admitted that. They all had trouble with their literacy and their numeracy. And I was saying to them, it's easy, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, come on, oh, girls. But we've had difficulties and we've had a laugh. And I got to be fair, some have done so well and others haven't done so well. So for those that haven't done so well, what do we do just to enable them to achieve what the others have achieved? Because they do feel left behind, they feel failure again. But it's an excellent scheme, you know, where they do take the computer home, but then they take the computer home and it's in a little bag and it's there until the next week. And then after the course finishes, it's there forever. So I hear what you're saying and I appreciate the work that's being done. But there are going to be people that are going to say, it's not for me. And it's not for me because of the life I live. We've touched upon the struggles and it is a struggle. And failure, you know, and I hear it every single day. I can't do it because I'll fail. Well, yes, you can. Come on, come on, come on. And that group probably, and I will say, the ones who shout the loudest get the most, you know, we know that's a fact of life. But it's a success. Even though there are a few struggles, it's been a success. So, you know, I thank the team for giving us the opportunity in our ward, but I do worry about when they go home because really, for some of these, they go home and that's all they've got is 4 walls. So if they did have that access, it might mean a lot more. So we're nearly there, but we're not quite there. But very, very interesting strategy. And, you know, we have to move forward. I think we all understand that. But then I think we all understand that there are people that will say, it ain't for me. And we just need to appreciate that. And I think us as elected members, we know our constituents very, very well. We know the vulnerable ones and we know their needs and demands. And maybe sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, I'm not going to speak for others, maybe you don't do enough. Just that little one step more would mean a lot. But I always say, if I can touch one life a year, I'm happy with that because that's massive. But this is opening the door, it's opening opportunities, it's building that confidence, giving that inclusion that, yes, I can achieve, I've done it. And it's big, just to put it on and basically, well, whatever, basic. But it's a big strategy again. And it's been around a long time, almost as long as I've been here. But again, a moving feast, massive. So I think you've got a lot of work to do, Lee. But thank you again. Leslie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, really
Give
just
Leslie way.
to echo what you've just said, that the point being, we've got to do a lot more to enable people access to computing and to all that brings. But we've also got to acknowledge that there will be some who'll never be able to use a computer. And back to your point that nobody should feel that they're a failure just because they can't use one. That some people are skillful at some things and others are skillful at others. So I think, I don't know, I just feel so strongly about this. It's this idea that everybody with the right training can use social media, computer and the rest of it, in my mind, is just rubbish. I think there are those who'll never be able to achieve that. But what you've got to do is make sure that they don't feel bad about it, which is really echoing what Mandy's just said. But I just felt it was worth repeating. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And just, I'll leave you in now, Al, in 1 minute. Sorry. Just to say, you know, to echo what Leslie's just said, we're all good at something in life. And, you know, it might not be academic, but that practical side brings a lot to the table as well. And we are all from different avenues in life, and we take things more sensitive than others. So really it's a learning curve for us all as well. But probably interesting as we develop, because it's here and we have to do what we can with it. But the message needs to be as basic as possible. It needs to be clear, and it's up to people like us to get out and to deliver in the communities. You know, because they speak about local area coordinators. They're a small army of individuals, and as professional as they are, they can't do everything. They can't touch every single person in the community. So, you know, it's up to us all, every one of us, just to help as much as we can. Alan, I'll give you away, love.
Yeah, Leslie, just to say, to echo what you were saying earlier, I met a couple of elderly ladies this morning. They were in their 90s, and when I talked about email, they didn't have a clue. But likewise, they weren't even concerned about it anyway. But on a practical side, just thinking about getting these people into centres where they can actually get access to IT facilities. I don't know if you remember, it's now called the Employment Support Agency on St Mary Street in Swansea. Well, that used to be the Social Bean, which was managed by, is it Leonard Cheshire at that time? Now, they had 6 or 7 computers in there that, unfortunately, every time I went there, because it's opposite the church, I'd go in for a coffee. But every time I went there, if there'd be one in there, that would be a crowd. But I mean, I wonder how many facilities like that are available within the city, you know, so that, and if that could be broadcast in some way, especially through things like community centres and so forth, where, you know, the hardware is there. You just need to go there to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Patience?
Yes, just to say that, you know, having heard what you've said, Chair, and as well as Leslie and everybody else, the one thing that stands out for me here is the fact that there will always be people who will never know anything, you know, or never want to have anything to do with computers. And I think my late mother was one of those. Put her in any room that you want, give her whatever gadget, give her the simplest language, whatever it was, computers were just not her. And there will be people like that. But what I want to emphasize here is with that realization, it brings to mind, you know, the importance of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and particularly the 5 ways of working, collaboration and involvement, and why it is very important that with this piece of work, that all the teams within the council work very closely together so that they can meet the needs of these people who will probably never have that digital experience, no matter what you do. I just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Patience. Do you want to come back, Lee?
Yes, thank you, and for all of the comments, just really appreciate that. But you're absolutely right. I was just looking back at the Welsh Government's digital strategy for Wales and their overall ambition, and there's 4 key parts to it about people with, as my screen goes off, motivation, access, skills, and confidence. So I think to recognise the fact that some people will struggle with one, if not all 4 of those things, and where we can provide the support and the help to get people to improve in those areas, we can absolutely, but certainly without the recognition, and I don't think it's in the strategy either from Welsh Government, that we would expect all citizens to fully tick all boxes and to be in that place as a society. However, this is about looking at the opportunities that digital can give to make people's lives better, help people live independently, get access to the help and the services that they need, whether individually, through their support, through carers, family members, all those sort of things. There's plenty of opportunities for us to make sure that the benefits of digital inclusion don't miss or skip a generation or a group or a cohort of people. So definitely, I think all of the comments here are really reflective of what we're trying to do. And it's about bringing all of those voices together to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So thank you. I really do appreciate all of that feedback. It's really helpful.
Thank you. And again, appreciation for compiling it. Long way to go, but we'll be there. Thank you, Lee. We do appreciate your time. Thank you. Now we're on to item 6, and it's the work plan for 24-25. Label that one. Yeah, 28. Right, so 28th of October is our next meeting date, and we got transition from child and family services to adult services. That's Julie. And then we have enabling communities, adult early help activities. Amy and Lee.
Chair, could I ask, if possible, we will let you know closer to the time, but we might want to swap that to the day opportunities use of assets that's in the December meeting. You will definitely get both of those reports. One may be one meeting and one, we're not sure which order yet. That work's going to come through, but we'll know in the coming weeks, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. So, thank you very much.
Engaging with the public.
Yeah, finished it. Come on. Right. Then we've got 9th of December. So probably we'll have was that one? Yes, no, that one. Enabling communities or day opportunities, supporting parents, cares of children's needs, and the Poverty Truth Commission. And then we're into 2025. So thank you all for your attendance. Meeting is now closed. Thank you. Take care. Look after yourselves.